So you want to get ahead of 99% of people in the next 6 months and reach your potential. I've been watching a lot of these videos recently, and a lot of them are talking about discipline and waking up at 5 a.m. and just really getting into the grind, but I feel like they're thinking about it all wrong. So in this video, I want to show you the 4-step plan just to make it easy to get ahead of 99% of people and really reach your potential. So before I get into the 4 steps to be ahead of 99% of people, I thought it would be good to stop for a second and see, what does it take to be in the 99th percentile? So I took a couple goals that people might have. The first one's financial, and I wanted to look at what does it take to be in the 99th percentile. So I start by doing the math. Let's say there's 8 billion people in the world. I'm not factoring in age yet. So if we want to look at what's the top 1%, how many people is that? Well, that's 80 million people. 1% of 8 billion is 80 million. So there's 80 million people that are in the 99th percentile, the top 1%. So if we look at billionaires, there are anywhere between 2,500 and 3,000 billionaires, somewhere in that ballpark. So that's way less than 80 million people. So when we're talking about the top 1%, we're not just talking about billionaires. They make up a small subset. So we still haven't even tapped, we look at those millionaires, that's 59 million people who are millionaires, but we have 80 million people to work with in the top 1st percentile. So I wanted to know, what's the minimum threshold that you would need to make to be in the 99th percentile? And it turns out the estimates vary, and so I chose kind of a middle amount. But it's $124,000 per year to just be exactly at the minimum of that 99th percentile. It's actually not that high of a bar. Now I want to factor it even further by age, because you probably don't want to be just in general in the 99th percentile of all people for any age group. You want to be probably in the 99th percentile for your age group. So if you look at financially for people in their 20s, the 99th percentile, their estimates that range, and I chose kind of a middle ground here. It's $80,000 per year to be in the 99th percentile in your 20s, which, $80,000 a year, that's a lot of money, but that's the 99th percentile. I mean, you're doing pretty good if you're doing anywhere close to that. So $80,000 a year, that's all it takes to be in the top 1% financially for people in their 20s. But I think when a lot of people talk about wanting to be ahead of their peers or in the top 1% or ahead of 99% of people, I think they're talking about something a little bit more than money. I think they're talking about something a little bit more intangible, and that's what I want to break down in the next section. Now, when people want to get ahead of 99% of people, I do think that there is a strong element about achievement and success in there. So if you look at Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs, this basically is just a pyramid that talks about you start at the foundational level, then when that need is met, you can go one level up, and when that need is met, you can go one level up, and there's kind of talk about, it's kind of fluid to some extent, but it's very hard to, get to the top, which is self-actualization, if you don't have your basic safety needs like air and food and water and shelter. So I think when people want to become ahead of 99% of people, what they're talking about is they want to be kind of above 99% of people on the rungs of this ladder. So I want to divide Maslow's hierarchy up into 2 sections. If you look at the bottom 3 sections, it's talking about a lack. This is a need that we have because there's a hole, there's something missing. We're missing relationships, we're missing food, and so we lack something. But then once you get above those 3 levels, you get to a space where it's not about you're lacking food, so you need to get some. You have everything, you have all your needs met. You've got to a stable, neutral place. Above that, it's new things that you want to add to your life. They're not required. It's not that anything's lacking, but it's a more growth-oriented frame. So what I want to do in this video is help take people out of this place of overwhelm. That's kind of the bottom few levels. Then you get to a place of stability, and I want to transition out of stability and into growth and into setting a new initiative for themselves. I think most people do not do that. Most people spend their time trying to get to stable, and once they get stable, they just kind of hold. They built fear around things, so they don't want to take risks, and they get to a stable place. But once you get to that stable place, that's actually the best time to launch into a new initiative, to work on yourself. So step 1, here's what you're going to do. You are going to create an action plan for yourself. We're getting up in these higher levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is success that you're looking for, esteem, and a lot of times that comes on the other side of a passion project, something realized. You want to start an online business, you have a passion project, you have a hobby, but it's really putting yourself into a new initiative. So whatever that new initiative is, that dream for you, it's important to get started on that thing. So I have a free template in the description box where I chunk you down with, okay, where do you want to be by the end of the year? Where do you want to be at the end of the quarter? Where do you want to be at the end of the month? Where do you want to be at the end of the week? And you get all the way down to weekly action steps. And it's so key that you get down to weekly action steps, because a lot of people set goals, okay? That's not what separates the 1% from the 99%, because tons of people set goals. What separates those is they're actually going up the rungs of that ladder of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. They're actually achieving that success, actually doing the thing, actually taking action to get toward that self-actualization. But the thing about goals is that they are important. If you throw a dart at no target, don't be surprised when you hit nothing. So you need to have a target, a guiding light, a vision, and that vision is your potential self, who you want to become. You have to have that guiding light going in that direction. The second thing that we're going to do is we're going to stop using a to-do list, and we're going to replace it with another tool instead. instead. A lot of times the to-do list is just like kind of the junk drawer of productivity. It's like everything gets put on there. It's going to take a lot of time. We don't realize it's unrealistic. And then it's, we just don't know when things are going to get done. You're just kind of chipping away at it. A lot of times it's stuff for today or tomorrow, kind of this urgent stuff. But you're going to stop using that, and instead what you're going to use is a calendar. So anything you would typically put on a to-do list, you're going to instead put on the calendar for how long it's going to take. That way you know it's realistic, because like I've said a lot of times on this channel, time is reality. So if you do not attach your action steps to time, they're not going to get attached to reality. So a goal floating on some piece of paper somewhere that you never check is not going to work, or a list of goals or a to-do list not attached to time is not going to work. You have to chunk it down by time and then assign it to time. Relentlessly, ruthlessly eliminate things that are not part of your priorities. You put the priorities on the calendar first, not the appointments and the stuff that a lot of people tend to put on calendars, but the important stuff. We're seeking self-actualization here. So things that would help you on the way to self-actualization is what's going to get put on the calendar. So the third step, the 3 out of the 4 steps, is you're going to disappear for a little bit. And I don't mean forever, and I don't mean like super 100% metaphorically. You still have a job, you still have to go to that thing. But for the next 6 to 12 months, your number one priority is becoming your potential self. So that is the number one thing that gets put on the calendar. That's the most important thing. And you're going to allot an extended amount of time to this thing for a while, because you're not going to make gains if you don't allot some time to it. So what I recommend for people is 5 hours a week. You can get a lot done in 5 hours a week. I think a lot of people overestimate what they can do in a year, but they underestimate what they can do in 10 years. And just 5 hours a week spent little by little will really add up to something. I read this quote, it was so good, and it was, the most advanced thing that you could do are the basics consistently. So you're just going to disappear. You're not going to worry about, the research or analysis paralysis or what all the information is. You're just going to execute. You're going to put out crappy things. You're really going to hate it, but it doesn't matter. You're beginning work no one sees. No one watches my older YouTube videos. I might as well just throw them away in the trash because no one watches them. So that's the mindset. No one's going to watch this stuff, so it doesn't even matter. No need for perfectionism because no one's going to watch it. So perfectionism can come later, and not, ruthlessly perfectionistic. But, when you want to research and study about the thing in your craft or whatever, that can come later. But, if you're doing a YouTube channel, for example, your first 50 videos, no, you don't need to research anything. They're going to be crappy no matter what you do. You work on it relentlessly, you fail, you put out crappy things, and that's your goal for the next 6 to 12 months. You're executing. A lot of people have these perfect ideas in their head and don't execute crappy things, but actually it's the crappy thing in the real world in existence that's better than the perfect idea in the head. So perfectionism has got to go, and you're going to disappear for like 6 to 12 months. You spend your 5 hours a day, get your routine going. Every Monday I film a video. Every Tuesday I edit a video. You get your routine. So you got this system. I write the chapter of the book, or I write a blog post, or I'm working on school. Whatever your thing is that's leading to this success and leading up this pyramid, you execute on that thing relentlessly. And the fourth step is the principle that you're going to apply along the way. And this is the RBM framework. This is something that we taught in teaching a lot. And this is something that I think really applies as you're trying to learn anything new, do any new venture. I think skills required in learning really relate to this. But R stands for the rules, and you got to learn the rules. You got to learn the system. If you're, a blog poster or something, you got to learn that system. You learn what the rules are. A lot of times you steal like an artist. This is the mimicry phase, sort of. You're not plagiarizing or whatever, but you need to learn the system. It's like if you're a cook, for example, you learn the recipes. You're just copying the recipes. That's step 1. So you got to learn how successful people are doing it. You don't want to, at this stage, at the beginning stage, you don't want to try to reinvent the wheel. Now, you don't want to stay in this phase forever, because you can't have really long-term success if you're just like mimicking people all the time. But you have to start somewhere. You have to start by just doing recipes. You're doing other people's recipes. You're doing what's worked for other people first. Then you get into the B phase, which is you're going to break some rules. So you're following a recipe, but every now and then you're like, I want to add a little bit of extra something here, and I want to add a little something here. So you're still following the rules. This is, a little bit later on the process. You're getting good. First you had to get started. Now you're getting good in this process. At the beginning, it's just about executing, doing these recipes. It's not about trying to be creative or trying to be something completely original, because you have to learn what works first to see the gap in the market. So you can't start out with like, okay, I'm gonna do this gap in the market, and then it turns out, well, the reason the gap was there is because no one wants that thing. So you have to figure out what people want first to understand what a valuable gap in the market would be. So in this phase, you break some rules, you got a little bit of creativity, and you still got some rules. And then finally, the M phase of the RBM is then you can make your own rules. And that's when you do the original thing. And that's where the success really happens. That's where the recognition happens, where you're doing something new. You understood what was valuable about everything else so that you can then become your own chef. You're making your own recipes. Then you can do that. So these are the phases. You follow recipes, then you follow recipes with adding in on of your little bit of spice, and then you get to the point where the whole thing is your own. You know, the whole thing is new. You're making your own recipes, but you have to go through these phases first, and you have to be willing to go through these for a long amount of time. And I think that in order to get ahead of 99% of people, you have to be willing to follow in the footsteps of the giants that came before you first. You know, a lot of people want to be like, okay, I just want to get ahead of everybody. I want to be the leader or whatever. You have to follow first and learn first and humble yourself so that then you can do your own thing and go in your own space. So I mentioned earlier about the template in the description box and top-down planning and really aligning your goals. But really, my goals and top-down planning would be nothing without this one habit that made me actually stick to my goals long term. So check out this video right here where I can show you like how to actually get into the top 1% and stick to that goal.